Yo, what up guys, it's Flark, and welcome to another one of my 10.1 PvP starter guides, where I go over builds and gear and everything to make you as impactful and powerful as you could possibly be in a solo shuffle PvP environment. And yeah, in this one I've totally gone off the deep end. This is a warlock. I'm doing demo. I don't care. Demo's really, really good, and pretty sure everybody can get the hang of it and just ooze damage and unpeelable pet-based burning legion army of demons. It's good. It's just really good. Destro's good too. I'm gonna start with demo. I don't play Destro very often, and I got demo to 25 last season in like 150 rounds or less of demo. That's all I played. So if I can do that, you can do that because I'm an old man. Cool. Gear. If you've watched any of my PvP starter guides, you know exactly what I'm going to say, which is that crit is a terrible stat for everyone. It is now 150% in PvP instead of the 175% that it was last patch and the 200% that it is in PvE, meaning it is 50% nerfed, which is half. And anything that you cut in half generally becomes a lot worse as a stat. Which is fine for demo because haste and mastery were really good stats for you, and now they just become 10 times better than that. Crit is completely worthless. So you just get haste and mastery on every single piece. And how do you do that? Well, you take a piece that has two options from the honor or conquest vendor, and you see if it has crit and haste, you choose haste. And if it has mastery and crit, you choose mastery. If it has haste and mastery, you choose haste still, because haste is just your best stat by far. It is cast speed, it is globals, it is pet autos, and pet damage is so much of your damage. And of course they compound because this makes your pet do more damage and this makes them attack faster. So having a lot of haste, it just makes everything better. So you get a lot of haste, and this is how. Haste, 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 haste. Yeah, cloth gear has a lot of haste on it. So you can easily find, and your insignia has a ton of haste. You can easily find a lot of haste. You can get haste gems and haste enchants, and you will be just fine. Everything else just has a little bit of mastery on it rather than crit, and that way you do the most output humanly possible. Now let me show you something pretty cool. You go to the adventure guide, then you go over to this drop-down menu, and you actually go to Shadowlands. Ew, I know. Then you go to Loot, and then you go to Tier Sets, Item Sets, and it actually pulls up the tier right here so you can see the stats and what pieces you want to get. And right off the bat, we have a beautiful one. Look at that. Main stat haste, so much haste on that. Off-stat versatility, so of course you want this. Not so good there. Mastery main stat here is actually quite good. Haste main stat with mastery off-stat is phenomenal. And haste main stat with crit off-stat is okay. Now, as a result, you have two pieces right here with no crit on them, and then two pieces with crit on them. But that's not that much of a problem, and I'll tell you exactly why. When you get a full set of PvP conquest gear, your versatility will actually be over 30%, which means 30%, if you did not know, is the DR point for versatility, which means not only do you have so much first, you have so much first that it actually DRs, making it a terrible output stat, and you have plenty for your healing and your damage reduction. You do not need anymore, which means you actually need to get rid of some versatility, and you can do that with these pieces, no problem. Legs here have haste main stat. They actually have a lot more haste than the PvP equivalent with haste and verse, right? So you're sacrificing verse for way more haste and some crit, but remember the verse was DR'd and you had so much of it anyway that crit is not so much of a problem. Same exact thing here. You get an enormous amount of mastery, which is just a prime output stat, especially with all the haste you'll have from all that gear. Your pet autos will be so quick. Your demonic tyrant will be firing off casts so fast, which means he gets a huge chunk of extra damage from every single one of those fast casts from this 500 baseline at 421. That's going to be like 700 mastery in 450 PvP gear. So what does that mean you do? And of course, you get the 4-set bonus. Now, the 4-set bonus is not end all, but like I said, the stats are already good enough by themselves because you need to sacrifice some verse for this mastery and main stat haste, which means the tier set bonus is just for free. You're just getting free damage, free effects that make you more powerful. Easy. And this is how you do it. Helmet, chest, gloves, legs. That will put together a perfect set of gear to get the best stats that you possibly can while getting the 4-set bonus, and that is what you will do for Demolock. So, haste and mastery on everything. That's the 4-set you're getting. Nothing really else to explain here. You're going to grab embellishments over the season. The embellishment that you need is precog. Every caster will be using precog. It is just so good. If two people kick you at the same time, you get precog. If you wall and somebody kicks you, you get precog. If you're just a great juker, you get precog. And it's not just the immunity to CC and the immunity to kicks, but it's also the haste that it gives you. And haste just immediately gives you value as a demo lock. Because even if you're not able to get a bunch of casts off, which you probably are, you're also immediately affecting your pets with that haste game. Because everything, there's no snapshotting in the game anymore, right? There's no snapshotting your dots or snapshotting pets, if that was ever a thing. That's all long gone. The second you have haste, you are buffing all your pets' autos at that exact moment. So if you get precog at any time, your pets just start doing more damage, is the long-winded way of saying that. So there you go. Precog. There's the 4 set you get. Haste mastery every piece, and that's how you build a character. Now, how do you build it talent-wise? Well, there's actually a lot of very, very good talents for demo. I chose a couple that I haven't seen very often. Maybe that changed recently. But this build, again, I don't... This is an interesting point that I'm going to add at this point in the video. There's going to be a lot of guides that come out. Period. People make guides. People make guides. There's going to be 3,500 demo players making guides. There's going to be Flarkness making a guide. There's going to be some guy who is just trying to get into the YouTube scene, and he's 2,600 EXP on demo, but he still wants to make a guide. There's going to be a bajillion guides, and you can watch whatever one you want. My guide is here because I know that there's a lot of people that do not have all day to play the game. They don't. They play after work, and they still like pushing rating, but it's not like they can devote their lives to it. Well, every guide that I make this season will be perfect for that type of person because I don't play the classes and got high rating. I had 2,800 on BM. I had 2,500. I think I was 2,700 MMR at the end of the season as demo. 150 rounds. I don't play these classes, but I got rating, and I'm old, and I still was able to do that, which means to all of you, this goes out to you right now. I'm talking to you. You don't have a lot of time to play the game. This guide is literally going to be pretty decent for that because I didn't play these classes a lot. And the rating was still acquired, right? So that means absolutely you should be able to do it too. If you don't have a lot of time to put into it, these talents are so self-sufficient, so understandable, so synergistic that you will be able to win games by doing damage with your pets. Cool. Okay, there's the disclaimer there. So all the beginning stuff is just a core set of pet damage talents. I mean, you get your cooldowns, you have Demon Bolt, that's a core ability, right? We don't really need to talk much about these. Demonic Strength is a huge instant that just makes you do a lot more damage. No requirement, you actually can just press it and it goes. It doesn't even have a soul shard requirement. Dealing more damage and taking less damage for your pet is huge because pet damage is such a big part of your kit. And then more Shadow Flame damage from you and everybody. All of your army of pets, those that do Shadow Flame damage, do more from Houndmaster's stratagem. Just a lot of really core mechanics, so I'm not going to talk about them, just things that do more damage. But as you go down, you get Grimoire Felguard, which gives you an on-demand stun, because it summons another Felguard that still does a really decent amount of damage, and stuns. He throws his axe and stuns them right when he presses it off. So you don't want to press this and axe toss at the same time, of course. You want to use this as a stun and then axe toss something else, or axe toss out if you really think you have kill, right? Just make sure that you're cognizant that this is a stun and a damage cooldown at the same time. Then as you go down, this is where I made a couple of decisions. I went 2 out of 2 with Inner Demons because Wild Imps are just a massive... If you look at your meters, Wild Imp is just a massive portion of your damage. Look at that. Top dam right there. Wild Imps are huge, and they buff your Tyrant. And having as many Wild Imps doing as much damage as possible is really, really good for demo, especially with all the haste you have. So I also went the Expendables because the more Wild Imps you get... the more damage all your other pets get. So it's like, first your Wild Imps come in, do a ton of damage, then they expire, give you charges of Demonic Core for your instant cast Demon Bolts, and buff your other pets, and then you summon more Wild Imps, which repeats the process, right? Now, I don't know, there's some other talents in here, and you guys can tell me in the comments if there are some other things that you've seen, or if everybody's just running this now. Honestly, I looked at the ladder and I was like, I wonder why this guy's not running this, and I ran it anyway, but maybe everything has changed since then. You guys can tell me, but this is what I run. This is just another Dreadstalker. It's just insane pet damage, and it gives you more buff for Demonic Tyrant, which of course we needed to get to. Demonic Tyrant is the main offensive cooldown of Demonology. You will never talent off of this, and it also, as you go down, allows you to have a talent that heavily buffs it based on how many pets you had while it was summoned. So you need to get your Dreadstalkers off, and that's why more Dreadstalkers are good. You need to get Grimoire Felguard out, and that's why this is good. You need to get more Wild Imps out, and that's why this is good, right? The more pets you can generate, the more damage your Tyrant does, and then all of that compounds to give you as many buffs for Tyrant, which then scales with your haste and scales with your mastery and just does a nuclear amount of damage. To the tune of 5 to 700k if it's not peeled or lined. Of course, a lot of people line demo lock, but you can use instant stun into half instant stun into full coil, which does not DR with stun. And that's a very good way of making it very difficult for them to get away from your Tyrant while you put down your Obelisk, which we'll talk about in a little bit. That's a PvP talent to make you have even faster casting speed, even more haste, and it is just nuclear, unpeelable, disruptive combo because of the stun coil burst damage. It's why demos are killing you. So if you're watching this guy and you're like, I don't really play demo, but I just want to know why they're killing me, that's why. It's so many compounding modifiers all on top of that big Tyrant go that is summoned only when you have a ton of other pets, because that's what gives it the most buffs, right? So that means they also have a ton of other pets dealing unlimited damage to you, right? Okay. Then you grab Nether Portal. Massive offensive cooldown that summons the Burning Legion to come out and do unlimited damage, which is buffed further by here, which gives it a chance to summon another additional demon, and then here, which gives you a Pit Lord, which literally cranks because it's just a massive demon that hits very hard and will hit faster because of Fel Obelisk and all your haste. And that is demo lock. Of course, the link will be in the description below to the build. I just talk through it because people tell me that's insanely helpful. But if you just want to copy and paste it, feel free to do that. Here's the import ability right here. Boom. Okay. Now, we're going to go over to the left side of the Warlock tree. It is mostly utility and extra damage and a ton of survivability. Feldom gives you an extra Felguard if it dies. If your Felguard ever dies, it is a huge problem, so you need Feldom to instantly summon it back. Then, survivability. You have Coil, which we were just talking about, a massive disruption tool, and it heals you when you press it. So if you ever get a stun into Coil when you're low and you've got like a melee on you, it both CCs them out, gives you a chance to kill them, and heals you so you can go more aggressive into them without having to kite. It's just a complete game swinger tool. You and your health, you and your pet's health, just survivability. Damage done by your pet, that's a no-brainer. Demonic Gateway is a massive utility button. Wall damage reduction increase is huge because you're going to be getting trained a lot as a Warlock, even as demo, and having a bigger wall is huge. You can also reduce the cooldown of it. The reason I don't run this personally is because low MMR solo shuffles, and that goes all the way up to 2,500. Sorry, that's even still technically like low MMR because people were getting 3,600 in that last season. So 2,500, you still find some, well, you know what I'm going to say. Fast games, maybe some mistakes that are capitalized on. Maybe you one-shot somebody in the opener, right? So do you need the way, you should choose this based on the way your games are going, but do you need one wall that's insanely good, or do you need a chance to get a second wall? Now, 45 seconds is a huge amount of cooldown reduction, which is great. But if you wall halfway into the game, are you going to get a second wall? Or is dampening going to stack up and somebody's going to die, whether it's you or your teammate or the opponent, before you get that second wall? And if that's true, and it generally is, that's why this all of a sudden becomes completely obsolete. Because if you don't get the second wall, this is like clicking a talent that doesn't exist, right? So that's my thought process. I always explain that to you. More Healthstone healing. Dark Pact is a crucial and massive part of your survivability toolkit. It can be used in stuns for a huge shield. And you press it at a high health. Make sure you press this at a high health, like 100% health to get the most value. You press it, like if you get kidneyed, you're like, okay, Dark Pact. If you get Stormbolted and he presses Avatar, you're like, okay, Dark Pact. If you wait until the Stormbolt is over and you're like, oh, I took a lot of damage, maybe I should Dark Pact, you are using this ability wrong. You should always Dark Pact high in response to offensive cooldowns, not in response to you taking a lot of damage. Otherwise, Dark Pact loses a lot of value. Easy. More Wild Imp damage, no brainer. Soul Link, massive survivability option. More damage for you and your pets, no brainer. Soul Shard generation, no brainer. Inquisitor's Gaze just adds damage and Shadow Flame damage, which gets buffed by Houndmaster's Stratagem. This is just huge pet utility effects. You get the charge. So your pet has more uptime, which allows them to do more damage and stun more. Damage reduction for your pet is great because, again, I said when it dies, it's a huge problem because you lose not only all your pet damage, but also soul link. So, yeah, you absolutely need him to be as tanky as possible. And this even makes you more tanky because you're less likely to be crit. Soul burn is huge. So much utility. You can soul burn port for movement speed and snare immunity. So that's why you cannot change them or hamstring them or disable them after they ported because they are using this. And Soulborn Healthstone is just a massive, massive heal that also gives you sustained survivability with maximum health increase. That's about it. Soul Leech is more survivability, and that's the whole 9 yards. Again, this will all be linked in the description below, but it's just utility, damage, self-healing, survive. Dark Pact is a massive button that you must understand how to use properly. Finally, you have PvP talents. Master Summoner got changed, but it's actually still really good, I feel. Call Dreadstalkers, Summon Vile Fiend, and Summon Demonic Tyrant having 20% less cast time is really, really good. Vile Fiend is a huge portion of your damage, and every time you press it, not your overall damage, but every time you press it, it adds, and it gives your Tyrant a buff. Call Dreadstalkers, we already talked about how insane that is, and getting your Tyrant off quicker is really nice because people do everything they can to disrupt it, and once it's out, they'll do everything they can to run away rather. So getting it out as fast as possible and getting that stun coil combo is really good. Plus, it reduces the cooldown of one of your major offensive buttons. Call Observer just got nerfed. It's probably still good. If people ignore it, it is probably garbage if you get to higher MMR and people kill it because now its health is really low. So it could probably just die to a single attack. It's kind of like the same thing as like the totem problem for Shaman. Totems are so good because it's just one button press for so much sustained healing until everybody gets a weak aura and starts killing all the totems, right? So Call Observer, you can still run this if you're playing low MMR and you just want everybody to get punished for not knowing what it does. But the second you find that people start killing it, you can swap it out. Here's one you probably will never swap out, and that's Fell Obelisk, which is a massive damage cooldown. And this is something so good that even though they can kill it, you position it well and you stun coil so they are not in the position to do so because they are crowd controlled. And all of a sudden, everything you have goes sicko mode. You have all your pets doing more damage, and you have every cast that you have casting very quick, which allows you to compound more pets, which makes them do more damage, and they're already doing more damage from the Fell Obelisk being out, right? So Fell Obelisk is too good, even though it has a kill condition. You just have to cross AC people when you use it. If you don't use Observer, there's lots of cool stuff. Bonds of Fel was recently nerfed, just a really good area effect, and that does a ton of damage. Nether Ward is fantastic into casters still. It is a spell reflect that reflects all harmful spells rather than a select few. Fel Lord has a stun built in and does a solid amount of damage if they stay in it. And of course, if you're tanking double melee in it, then they kind of have to stay in it to hit you, which disrupts them a lot with the non-DR stun. And then Soul Rip. This thing is really cool. Like it's just like a wall for you and your teammates because it reduces a target's damage done by 25%. And yeah, they can run into the Fractured Soul. I think this thing is new enough that a lot of people don't do that, which means it could actually get its full 8-second value, which is just great. Damage reduction and healing reduction onto any target with only a 1 soul shard requirement. So a ton of good PvP talents if your Observer is getting killed. Before Observer was an every game kind of thing, and that's why they nerfed it. Easy. Demo rotation is a little bit more complex than the other specs that I've been doing so far, but still very handleable. Effectively, you are just trying to get pets out the whole game. The cool thing about demo is even though perfecting it is a little difficult, making value out of it at the baseline level is very easy because every button you press is just so impactful. When you get your Dreadstalkers out, they just start doing a bunch of damage because you summon so many of them. Summon Vile Fiend, you can use even line. I see a lot of demos do this. They summon it behind a pillar. See what I'm just casting it, right? I'm not even targeting anything. You can get a Vile Fiend out and then like start moving into the fray. And then it will just be part of your pet army to buff all your things in your Tyrant. And it'll just immediately start attacking when you start attacking. So you want to get your Vile Fiend out, then you'd call Dreadstalkers. Again, you want to get your Grimoire Felguard out for a Tyrant buff, but also a stun on the kill target. Maybe that should be the last thing you press. You've Grimoire Felguard into Tyrant with Fell Obelisk out. Demonic Strength is just a button you throw in there when you've got damage out. You just press it. It's just like an instant. It's just, you just press it. It's the weirdest button ever. You just press it and then damage happens. You get your Nether Portal out in your burst as well. It's kind of like hand in hand with Tyrant, and then the Burning Legion comes out and you do unlimited damage. You need to get Hand of Gul'dans every time. This is your spender and you press it all the time. Your generator is Shadow Bolt. But when you have a Demonic Core proc, which you get from your Dreadstalkers expiring or your Wild Imps that you get from Hand of Gul'dan expiring, you want to use that over Shadow Bolt 100 times out of 100. It's a proc that's instant cast and generates 2 soul shards instead of 1, which means you can kind of alternate between Demon Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan. So the Vile Fiend comes down, right? Then you summon the Dreadstalkers, you get the Grimoire out, you Tyrant with Obelisk, you get the Nether Portal, you start Gul'daning, and then all of a sudden, you're already doing truly limitless and unfathomable damage. And it never ends. Look at that. It's going up. It's 100k single target DPS. Of course, it's less than PvP. We know that. We're not stupid. And there's those procs I was talking about. Proc, Hand of Gul'dan. Proc, Hand of Gul'dan. Proc, Call Dreadstalkers. Proc, Hand of Gul'dan. You see how this works? And you're just doing 100k DPS the entire time. And it's completely unpeelable. Because you have so many pets. I mean, you guys have played into a demo lock. I don't need to say this. If you play into a demo lock, you have every understanding of just how difficult it is to manage what they're doing with instant CC, coil, instant damage, pet damage, range damage, so much haste. Everything comes off so quick. It is non-stop sustain. It's got burst in Tyrant, burst in Nether Portal, and sustain and everything else. Demo is very, very good, and that's how you make it work. Enjoy, brothers. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.